Next week, though, something that you viewers may be familiar with is there is a motion to dismiss hearing between the corrupt agency that is the SEC versus one Richard Hart and his alter egos, Pulse Chain, Hex, Pulse X, and whatever else they want to pretend is his alter ego. So we're 1 week out, basically, at this point. We can look, I guess at first we could just look at this thing that Nuclear Herbs posted the other day. It's really a nothing burger, but at least it was curious that apparently on the court's docket, they just have not had the hearing up there. And then actually just today, literally hours ago, they uploaded the hearing schedule. It's still scheduled for October 31st, Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So all that is still set. But I found it interesting, this post from Nuclear Herbs, that they hadn't really had it. He said he went over to the EDNY's court calendar to confirm the time because someone asked me, but it's not there. In fact, if you look at their court calendar, there's nothing about the hearing. Check the 31st. There was no mention of it. Now, this has since been amended as of today. He says, I also couldn't find the Pacer entry that Richard posted on September the 20th when his attorneys uploaded their stuff. It doesn't appear to exist. Not sure where the screenshot came from, but it's clearly from Pacer, which is where you get these court dockets and things like that. So I called Judge Amon's clerk, which is the judge overseeing the case, this morning and confirmed, yes, it's still set for the 31st at 2 p.m. I have no idea why the calendar isn't showing it. So very interesting that was happening for whatever reason. Again, it doesn't mean anything now because we know it's still happening and they did update that today. But I want to get your take on that, Ewok, but also more importantly that we've now had, I think, over 200 people that have RSVP'd to this event, not necessarily RSVP'd to the hearing. I don't think there's anything where you can tell a judge like, hey, I'm coming. I don't think there's any, RSVP. We want to know you're coming. But as far as like the event, the after events, things that may go on in New York City after that, so we know that not that we ever doubted it, that this ecosystem is going to have massive representation in the courthouse that day. Let's knock on wood that everybody is well behaved. I think that they probably will be. And it's nice that we're going to have somebody that is an attorney like Nuclear Herbs there. We're going to have RG3 there. I think Crypto Coffee, you could probably even tell me other ones, Ewok, that will likely be able to kind of take a leadership role and say, like, guys, not that I expect anybody to be rowdy or over the top. I don't think anybody's that stupid that would make that trip. But luckily we'll have a few people that can kind of lead things a little bit, I think. So yeah, what do you make of this? It's just so fun that we're a week out. Obviously, we know we're not going to get any kind of a result that day. Like you said at the top of the show, it would be nice just to see the turnout, see the boots on the ground and stuff like that, and then wait for a decision in 60 to 90 days probably. But yeah, what are your thoughts as we're just a week out here?
Well, I find it interesting, Nuclear Herb's last comment that her calendar is only week by week. So we have to wait until Monday to see it, which was interesting that they only get a 1 week schedule. Like they don't get anything more than that, which I find odd. But either way, no. And you know what? Maybe even he said he called the clerk, and maybe they're the ones that for some reason didn't update it or whatever, and now it is. So it's hard to say. That could have triggered the whole thing as well. I think it's going to be amazing that we've got this kind of representation there. The one thing that they were selling the tickets for was the attorneys, right? People, the RH attorneys had said, if you can, make it so that we get enough people here, we'll stick around. We'll answer questions. We'll do a private thing. And they wanted them to sell the tickets. That way they could get a feeling of who was coming and who wasn't, right? You can RSVP all you want, but when you actually buy a ticket, it makes it a little more serious. So there were plenty of people to do that. I think they're having that event afterwards. I don't know. I'm assuming it's before dinner or after, whatever it is. But I think that's cool as well. So these guys are probably, not only going to be listening in the courtroom, but they're going to get to talk to these lawyers who have been working on this case. And, we're not going to get a lot of private information probably because there still is that, there's still that lawyer confidentiality thing that happens, but they will be able to answer some of the concerns and questions. And I think you'll be able to get a good feel how the case went, um, in their mind. Again, some of these guys did work for the SEC, so
Mhm.
they're gonna know pretty much how it went and what to expect just by reading the judge's body language or the plaintiff's demeanor as they cut through all of their arguments, basically. Um, yeah, I think it's going to be pretty awesome.
I think so too. Yeah, and yeah, you're not going to get that like client confidentiality stuff, but I mean, I think we'll get a very good vibe of how they felt that hearing went, what they think the chances are of the hearing being the overall trial, everything being dismissed after this. Because I've heard Nuclear Herb say before that traditionally, like in any case, a motion to dismiss hearing, you've got like a 10% chance of
Yeah,
actually
it's
getting
rare.
something dismissed. Yeah, it's just not likely. But because of how flippant, of course, the SEC has been with this, because of their recent track record and everything, and basically everybody knowing that everything they do is corruption and incompetence and just throwing a bunch of shit against the wall, that it's probably more like a 30% chance with something
Yeah.
like this. And as
Yep.
stacked as RH's attorneys are, and like you mentioned, that some of them have worked with the SEC, um, yeah, that it is a higher percentage chance. And like DJ Moonboy in the chat somehow didn't know this, but he thought it was just like the I mean, we would have a trial if this thing, there'd be a whole trial getting ready to start. But he was asking whether this was the final hearing or just motion to dismiss. It is just motion to dismiss. But remember, too, I mean, like, even if the judge does not grant a dismissal, which, based on like the really lack of jurisdiction and stuff like that, that's why there's a case for this to be dismissed. But I mean, even if the judge comes back in January and does not dismiss the case, I mean, this is gonna. I mean, it's probably gonna go into 2026, and I don't even mean that in a like. Who cares? I
Right.
mean, like,
Right.
I don't think it really matters if there's a result or anything. I don't think, again, everybody that like is afraid of it or super bullish. I mean, sure, it'd be great like to get a decisive victory, just like XRP did and stuff like that. But either way, this is just the SEC. This isn't anything like people are just giving them too much credence at this point. Yes, they suck. Yes, we want Gary Gensler fired. Yes, we'd like the whole thing to be disbanded and stuff like that, and that'd be cool. But beating them or losing to them by a judge's decision doesn't really move the needle that much, and that's how we should be looking at this. Yes, of course, you want to win, but it's the SEC. I mean, they look at how many people they've sued.
Right.
And they're not like any kind of a legal entity or anything like that. It's just their opinion, which is fraught with all kinds of mistakes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I think we just need to stop taking them so seriously. I mean, it's cool that obviously Richard is taking the lawsuit seriously, but we as investors don't really need to be worrying about them. I mean,
So maybe you have a little more insight, but I don't think this is so much about it being a security or not.
correct.
I think the case was brought for misappropriation of funds. Was one of the big things that they brought up. Um, I, I I don't know the fact of whether it's a security or not.
Well, just what I think he's specifically asking, like, no, nothing at all about anything in their complaint is being brought up on the 31st. I guess, like, in a way, if you want to look at it, whether they have
Right.
jurisdiction or not is being brought up. This has nothing to do with the trial. Like, not all of their complaints are irrelevant on the 31st. This is purely
Right.
about Richard's
This is
attorneys.
motion to
Right.
dismiss.
Right.
Is it going to be dismissed or are they going to hear it? And that's
Yeah.
what this one is about. They're not going to really discuss that type of stuff. They're going to decide whether they have jurisdiction or not. And if they claim that they do, then they'll probably get something. Well, we won't know, right? We won't know for 60 or 90 days whether the judge decides to have continuance and let this thing play out, or she dismisses it. So
Mhm.
that's where we're at. That's what this hearing is all about.
Yes, bingo. Mr. Chinks, yes, Michael Liftick is a beast. We both saw him. He was the one that was in front of Congress a couple of weeks ago there, Ewok. Yeah, I mean, I have the utmost. I mean, I have so much faith in these guys.
Yeah.
I'm very, very confident. I mean, let's be frank. You don't have to be all that educated with this stuff to beat the SEC's claims, but these guys are very, very educated. And of course, with somebody like Richard Hart, like who he's going to employ to represent him, he's going to have the best and make sure
Yep.
they have his understanding. So,
Yep.
Yeah. So yes, that is all that will be happening on the 31st. This is purely, again, it's nothing really that's in the complaint other than the fact that they try to show that their jurisdiction is because, oh, at least one investor in Pulse Chain lived in the Southern District of New York, like all this bullshit basically. Or like, oh, Hex was transacted on Uniswap and at least one of the developers of Uniswap is, it's like, I've said this phrase a million times, but it's like you could have, okay, I'm sure that's true of Helena, Montana, or whatever the fuck, or, anywhere else you want to go to in the country. Why did it just happen to be your home court? You know what I mean?
Right.
So yeah, they have a legitimate argument with the jurisdiction. We'll see where that goes, but it's neither here nor there. Nobody should get really upset if this moves forward to a trial. It is likely to still do that. But we got gains to make next year. I don't give a shit about the SEC. So
yep,
yeah,
pretty much.